Good evening in Italy and in Saudi Arabia. Today we have a match in the group H for two teams. This is our third match, in the group phase. We'll be happy to hear a debate on the topic they received, of course, a week ago. But this is a match between IULM University of Milan in Italy, in Milan, and a match against Prince Sultan University in Riyadh. I give the floor to my colleague for the match.
Thank you very much, and indeed, good day everyone, and welcome to the Day 3 debate between IULM University of Milan and Prince Sultan University teams. The topic of today's debate will be on whether or not states must require environmental monitoring of geoengineering experiments consistent with international environmental governance principles. As always, we'll first start with the introductions, and I also want to express the big thank you to the three judges for today's debate. And without further ado, passing to IULM University of Milan, Mr. Michelin.
Hi everyone, my name is Alessio. I'm a strategic communication student and I'm glad to be here with you guys.
Thank you and welcome from Prince Sultan University, Ms. Hashim.
Hello, my name is Sireen Hashem. I'm an interior design student in Prince Sultan University and I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you and welcome Ms. Cavallo of IULM University of Milan.
Hello everyone, my name is Giulia. I am currently also studying strategic communication in Milan, and it is really nice to meet you and to be here today. I hope we can have a constructive debate and have fun.
Thank you and welcome Mr. Mohammed of Prince Sultan University.
Hello, my name is Hassan Mohammed. I am a third-year marketing student in PSU, and inshallah, we will have a great debate today.
Thank you and welcome for IULM University of Milan, Mr. Loria.
Hi everyone, I'm Jamin Chanzo. I'm a student of Marketing, Communication and Consumer Behavior in Milan. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really glad to face with nice students of law and also design interior in in Saudi Arabia. I think it's going to be a great debate. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you and welcome. And Ms. Baksh of Prince Sultan University.
Hello everyone, nice to meet you guys. My name is Maya. I'm a law student, first year, and I'm very excited to debate with you guys.
Okay, welcome. And also we would like to express the thank you for the supporting network of the two teams. For IULM team, it is Ms. Lanzoni and Colaoni. And for Prince Sultan University team, it's Ms. Adan, Ms. Hashim, and Ms. Kuti. So in a few moments, you should be able to see the wheel for the allocation of positions. My colleague will be sharing the screen shortly. Yes. There.
As you can see, two possibilities for this match to be in favor or to be against the motion. Team in favor will be starting the match with the first introduction. Prince Sultan University against the motion. And as a consequence, IULM University of Milan, you are in favor of the motion, you start with the first introduction. So you have 5 minutes now to review your notes. And you can close mic and camera.
Thank you, everyone. This marks the conclusion of your final time for preparation. Just for the participants, note that you have the video of my colleague, Mr. Sanchez Cortez Macias, visible to you, as he will be giving you the cues for your 30 seconds and for your speaking time being up. And thus, without further ado, IULM University of Milan, you have 4 minutes for in favor opener.
Okay, can you hear me and see me?
Yes.
Okay, so my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges and distinguished colleagues, imagine a world where, in trying to save our planet, we unknowingly damage it beyond repair. This is the reality that we risk with geoengineering, because the consequences of these experiments could ripple across the entire Earth, affecting billions of lives and ecosystems. In this case, acting without strict monitoring is just gambling with our only home. Geoengineering refers to deliberate technological interventions in the Earth climate system to counteract climate change. So examples may include actions such as stratospheric aerosol injections, oceans fertilization, or marine cloud brightening. So while these technologies can help combat climate change, they also pose uncertainty and potentially global environmental risks. So the international community already recognizes these risks of geoengineering through, for example, Decision X33 of the Convention of Biological Diversity. This decision states that geoengineering activities should not proceed without an adequate scientific basis and appropriate consideration of risks and biodiversity and ecosystems, emphasizing the need for assessment and monitoring. Furthermore, international treaties governing the oceans already apply monitoring requirements to geoengineering related activities done in the oceans. So, for example, under the London Convention or the London Protocol, states have adopted specific rules addressing ocean fertilizations that require environmental assessments and strict monitoring to ensure the safety and the legitimacy of these scientific researches, and so that they do not damage marine ecosystems. And finally, the duty to assess and monitor environmental harm has been recognized also by international landscape in concrete cases. It is the case, for example, of the International Court of Justice in the pulp mills case, because in this instance, the court affirmed that when an activity may cause a significant transboundary environmental harm, states have a legal obligation to conduct an environmental impact assessment. And therefore, geoengineering experiments, by their very nature, may affect the atmospheres, the oceans, and the ecosystems beyond national borders. And therefore, monitoring is a logical extension of this established due diligence duty. And finally, requiring environmental monitoring ensures responsible research, because it allows scientists to collect reliable data, detect unintended consequences, and therefore adjust or stop their experiments before serious damage can occur. In conclusion, without monitoring, geoengineering could damage ecosystems without accountability. Yet, the atmosphere, the oceans, they do not belong to a single nation, but they are shared, and they are a global common that affect every community on Earth. So, for this reason, monitoring is not just a limitation, but rather the line between responsibility and irreversible harm, the line between protecting our future and putting it at risk. Thank you.
Thank you. For the opening statement in the against position, team of Prince Sultan University.
Am I visible and audible?
You are.
Okay. I will start in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges, esteemed opponents, and distinguished audience. As we face an existential threat of climate change, the role of international law is not to act as a barrier, but as a catalyst for solution. While the proposition advocates for a rigid mandate for monitoring geoengineering, we must remember that law is a living instrument that must balance the duty of prevention and the duty of mitigation. Our position is that a mandatory international monitoring requirement would inadvertently freeze the very specific progress the planet requires more today more than ever. First, the right to science and duty to mitigate outweigh procedural stagnation. Second, sovereign discretion and existing soft law already satisfy the standard of due diligence. Third, the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities proves that a uniform monitoring mandate is legally and practically inequitable. To begin, we must recognize that international law establishes a fundamental right to science under Article 15 of the International Covenant on Economics, Social, and Cultural Rights. States are legally bound to respect the freedom of indispensable for scientific research and to promote the development and diffusion of science. By imposing mandatory monitoring as a prerequisite for geoengineering projects, we create an excessive regulatory burden. This effectively elevates a procedural requirement above a substantial human rights to life and a healthy environment. In the hierarchy of norms, the duty to take all necessary measures to mitigate climate change, as articulated in the UNFCCC, must not be neutralized by a one size fits all monitoring hurdle that prevents the discovery of life saving technology. Following that, we must emphasize that existing legal frameworks and scientific ethics already provide robust oversight without the need for a new mandate of state monitoring. Under Principle 2 of the Rio Declaration, states have the sovereign rights states have the sovereign rights to manage activities within their jurisdiction. We already have the Oxford Principle of Geoengineering and the Asli Omar Declaration, sophisticated international instruments that provide clear ethical guardrails. These frameworks emphasize transparency, responsible research governance, and risk assessment, providing guidance that allows scientific innovation to proceed. Therefore, a rigid state mandate is unnecessary, as existing legal frameworks and ethical guidelines already enable states to oversee geoengineering responsibly and fulfill their international obligations. Lastly, we must address the legal inequity of a uniform monitoring requirement through the principle of common but differentiated responsibility. Principle 7 of the Rio Declaration dictates that states have different capabilities and responsibilities based on their historical contribution and current resources. A mandatory high-tech monitoring requirement would create a burden on developing nations. These states have a right to scientific development, but often lack the satellite arrays or sensor network to provide real-time monitoring, consistent with global standards. The proposition argues for. Therefore, if we mandate this, we effectively create a technology divide that violates the principle of intergenerational equity. The core question before us today is, does international law exist to monitor our decline or to facilitate our survival? The right to science demand we keep the doors of innovation open. Sovereign discretion ensures our oversight is effective, and the principle of CBDR ensures our legal framework is equitable. Law is not a cage, it is a compass. We must allow it to point us towards solution rather than trapping us in a circle of observation while the world warms. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear the first rebuttal for the in favor position. IULM University of Milan, 2 minutes.
Can you see me and hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, I'm ready. Honorable judges and dear colleague, to answer to the against side, soft laws are not enough. And if a state has wealth to experiment, must have also the wealth to monitor those experiments to avoid natural disasters. Monitoring also creates trust in science, and without trust, geoengineering is not a research, it's a global gamble. The law affects experiment is a lesson that teaches that we need public trust When law first proceeded without a universally accepted monitoring framework, it triggered a collapse in public trust and nearly stopped the research entirely. Mandatory monitoring provides the social license to operate. It's like an insurance that allows research to continue safely under the eyes of international community. One of the most compelling issues is data standardization that is only possible with a mandatory monitoring consistent with international principles. Without this monitoring, scientific data becomes fragmented and uncomparable. We advocate Oxford principles, which state that geoengineering must be regulated as a public good and require full disclosure. Monitoring is a mechanism that ensures open science. It prevents rogue experiments like the Ayaguay incident from delegitimizing the entire field of climate restoration. By demanding monitoring, we create a global, reliable database that allows scientific community, not just one state, to judge the success or the failure of an experiment. Monitoring is a logical extension of the due diligence duty recognized in the pulp mill case. As the atmosphere is a global common. No state has the right to experiment on our shared skies or seas without providing the data to prove that they are not destroying it. We must choose the path of transparency over the path of secrecy. For this reason, we strongly support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Prince Sultan University, for your first rebuttal in the against.
Am I audible and visible?
You are.
Okay, my speech will begin in 3, 2, 1. Judges, the proposition makes 3 points that we must focus on. First, they say that geoengineering carries risks, and this is right. But claiming monitoring will prevent this risk transcends borders is naive. Relying on the Convention of Biological Diversity or the London Convention, like they also said, is not preventative. Cross-border and long-term impacts are inherently unpredictable, and no treaty, like they previously stated, can make them fully manageable, and therefore relying on monitoring is a false sense of safety. They also rely on previous old treaties, but new geoengineering is new, and the technology is misleading. Therefore, these instruments were never designed for modern climate interventions, and using them is a false sense of security while ignoring gaps in enforcement and scientific oversight. Third, the duty to prevent harm is outstated, which they said that the ICJ, like the pulp mills on the River Uruguay case, it shows that the duty exists only when feasible precautions are taken, not that the states have to establish a global monitoring system that are costly and practically impossible to implement. Aside from these points, the proposition also fails to confront how geoengineering is a rapidly developing field full of potential benefits. A rigid state monitoring mandate risks stifling innovation, creating bureaucratic delays, and undermining scientific autonomy. Not all geoengineering experiments pose significant transboundary harm, yet the proposition treats every project as if it were a planetary intervention. And this becomes more clear whenever we look at the case of the stratospheric controlled perturbation experiment led by researchers at Harvard University. A planned solar geoengineering field test was shut down after government pressure, and despite being a small-scale experiment designed to answer critical scientific questions, this demonstrates how heavy regulatory scrutiny and public governance halted research before it could even generate important data. This example proves that oversight can stifle innovation, the very freedoms that science protects. Thank you.
Thank you. For the second rebuttal in favor, IULM University of Milan.
I'm ready. Honorable judges, dear colleague, the opposition is attempting to frame monitoring as a violation of sovereignty, an economic burden, or a bureaucratic delay. But we must look at what happens in the real world when states do not mandate monitoring. We extend our affirmative case with the following unrefutable realities. If, for example, a geoengineering experiment in the Pacific alters a rainfall and causes a drought in South America, who is responsible? We cannot answer this crucial question like those without monitoring, because monitoring helps with standardized data. In fact, we need the technical ability to link a specific climate event to a specific geoengineering test. If the monitoring is not compliant with international law, we struggle a lot in standardize those data. Pro monitoring ensures that we have the evidentiary tool for liability. Without state mandate monitoring, victims of transboundary harm have no data, no proof, and no justice. Second point, right now the great risk comes from private entities rather than states. And without a strict mandate, startups or philanthropic organizations can conduct geoengineering within the state border with zero oversight. Under the international law, a state is responsible for a lack of due diligence if it fails to regulate these private actors, like it happened in Canada. Monitoring is the only way a state fulfills its duty to stop private actors from recklessly altering our atmosphere. And finally, we should monitoring as a moral imperative. We cannot experiment on the future climate without a rigorous register of what was done. Mandatory monitoring acts as a climate audit for future generations. If we do not require this data today, we are forcing our children to navigate in a manipulated climate completely blind. Monitoring is not a barrier to innovation, is the prerequisite for a responsible future. For these reasons, states must require environmental monitoring of geoengineering experiments consistent with international environmental governance
Thank you.
principles. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the second rebuttal in the against position, Prince Sultan University.
I'm audible and visible?
You are.
Okay, I will begin in 3, 2, 1. Judges, the proposition assumes that every geoengineering experiment threatens other states, but in reality, most geoengineering projects are small scale and confined within national borders, like we stated in the previous rebuttal. University-led projects, ocean fertilization tests, their claim on international law on transboundary harm therefore only applies when there is a genuine risk of cross-border impact, and we will get to this later on. They also claim that monitoring is essential, but they ignore that overregulation can actively delay climate solutions. We mentioned that geoengineering is crucial and it's an emerging field. Smaller states and university institutions may simply stop conducting experiments and eliminate opportunity for creative destruction. And a clear example is the reaction to the ocean fertilization under the Convention of the Biological Diversity following the 2012 Pacific experiment. The CBD adopted highly restrictive decisions and it limited most geoengineering research to small-scale, highly controlled studies. They also argue that mandatory monitoring is required by international law, and this is the point that I'm talking about. The proposition claims that international environmental law states have to monitor geoengineering research. However, international law imposes due diligence, but it not universal mandates. The proposition says that the Pulp Mills case show that states must assess risk only when there is potential transboundary harm and not monitor every experiment. Small-scale experiments don't automatically create a transboundary harm. They're trying to transform a flexible due diligence principle into a rigid international rule, but this is not correct. They also state that international monitoring and transparency builds trust between and how nations need to work together, but this may sound like a nice in theory, but in practice, global monitoring regimes can politicize scientific research and create diplomatic disputes. For example, states may accuse one another of manipulating climate outcomes. Natural climate events could be falsely blamed, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. For the concluding statements, IULM University of Milan, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, am I audible, visible? Can you
You
hear
are.
me? Okay, amazing. So my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Okay, honorable judges and fellow debaters, this debate had one real question. When a state conducts experiments on our shared atmosphere and ocean, does the world have the right to know what is happening? If we understood correctly, the opposition said not necessarily. And that is exactly the problem. They told you that monitoring creates bureaucracy and slows down research. But we bring you the law effects that already answer that argument. Without a shared monitoring framework, the data was worthless. The diplomatic scandal was real and the research nearly collapsed entirely. That is not science. That is a global gamble in our atmosphere, judges. Then, second clash, with their incredible speech, they told you that principles behind this motion are not binding legally. But pulp mills is binding, and it states clearly when an activity risks causing significantly transboundary harm, monitoring is not optional, it is a due diligence. Without it, victims have no data, no evidence, no justice, none. And then, third clash, they try to tell you that private actors self-regulate. IDA proves the opposite. 100 tons of iron sulfate dumped into the Pacific Oceans, zero neutral oversight, zero usable data. A state that fails to monitor its own actors is failing this obligation under international law. So that is the reality, judges. The atmosphere belongs to everyone, and no one has the right to gamble with it, in particular in secrets. So that's the reason why you should support the motion. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. For the concluding statement in the against position, Prince Sultan University.
Am I audible and visible?
You are.
Perfect. I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges, esteemed opponents, and distinguished audience, throughout this debate, our team has defended one principle. International law must balance the duty of prevention with the duty of mitigation. In a climate emergency, the law should enable solutions, not freeze the scientific progress the planet urgently needs. Article 15 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights protects the freedom indispensable for scientific research. At the same time, the Paris Agreement and the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change requires ambitious climate mitigation. A rigid monitoring mandate risks creating a regulatory chill that slows the discovery of technologies needed to address the climate crisis. Principle 2 of the Rio Declaration on Environment and Development affirms states' sovereign rights to regulate activities within their jurisdiction. Frameworks like the Oxford Principles for Geoengineering and the Asilomar Declaration already guide responsible research. And in the pulp mills, on the river urgency case, due diligence was confirmed as a flexible standard. Principle 7 of the Rio Declaration on Environment and Development establishes common but differentiated responsibilities, recognizing different national capacities. A universal monitoring mandate could impose heavy burdens on developing states and widen the technology divide. Our team has also stated that on 3 separate occasions, the proposition's argument fails. Strict monitoring risks over regulation that discourages research, as seen after restrictions by the Covenant on Biological Diversity following the 2012 ocean fertilization experiment. Geoengineers methods vary widely, making a one-size-fits-all monitoring system impractical, and mandatory monitoring can politicalize science, slowing the innovation needed to address climate change. If international law exists to help humanity confront global crises, should it trap innovation and procedure or guide it towards survival?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to both teams. Well done for your day 3 debate. Congratulations on completing your group phase. You can all now relax. You are no longer graded after this part. Well done. As always, the judges will have the time to review the debate and submit the scorecards. Once again, thank you, a big thank you to the 3 judges for your debate. But already now we would like to, as always, encourage you to share the feedback, perhaps on the topic, if you heard familiar arguments from your research from the opposing team, and how you found today's exchange. Starting with the Prince Sultan University team, Ms. Hashem.
I personally really enjoyed the debate. I felt like we had a lot of opposing ideas, and I feel like we all did our research amazingly, so I'm happy from it.
Thank you for sharing. Mr. Lordia, how did you find the exchange on the topic today?
Topic was a really challenging topic, but it was really fun. I saw that both team get through this with pathos, nice arguments as well. And I really had fun, and it was a really nice debate. Some points of the research were in common, of course. Others were different point of view. Was really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mohammed, same question.
I thought the debate was very nice. It was very had our points were very nice from both teams, And in general, it was just a very entertaining debate to be a part of.
Thank you. Ms. Cavalla?
Yeah, so I think this one was the most difficult topic that we received so far, but nonetheless, it was again fun to prepare and to research with my teammates. So, and I think we had a really nice debate. I think we also have some matching elements that the other team brought up that we also found. So I want to congratulate also the other team because I think they were really nice.
Thank you. Ms. Beth?
I enjoyed today's debates. I did notice some of the research that we brought up for the other side, like the due diligence principle and some of the cases that they brought up. We also did research on it. So it's fun, knowing that you also did research for that and seeing points overlap. And in general, I did have a fun time debating with the team.
Thank you. And Mr. Michelin?
Yeah, it was a really good debate. I think I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys had the same feeling as mine. And yeah, I think my colleagues already said everything. But yeah, we had some topics that matches, but others very interesting. You bring a lot of topics, in particular with the articles, that I appreciate a lot. So thank you.
Thank you. And really, from the organizing side, thank you and congratulations to your teams. It was a pleasure to observe your debates from day 1 to this day 3 match. You have had quite a journey, and we would like to now give you the floor to give a shout out if you would like to those that perhaps motivated you or otherwise supported you during the day 1 to day 3 for now. And starting with the IULM University of Milan.
Yeah, so definitely, I think my team would absolutely like to thank both our coaches, Miss Lanzoni and Professor Colleoni. They were very helpful and supportive in constructing our debate and researching the topics. They helped us a lot, even during like late evening. So it was really nice. And me myself, I want to really thank my teammates because I think we worked really nicely. Every match that we didn't necessarily win every time, but we had a lot of fun and it was really nice to be here with them.
Same for your colleagues, if you would like to add.
Yeah, oh, sorry. I didn't get, pardon me.
No, it's okay, you go. Okay, well, we'd like to thank also our judges. Our coaches, Lynn and Rena. Rena was a competitor last year in The Hague, so she gives us some valuable insights. And Lynn also competed in The Hague previously, so they both give us valuable insight. They help us a lot. And I also want to say thank you to my team members, Hassan and Sureen, because I message them at the craziest times and they answer me and they work with me and they listen. And yeah, we cooperate and it's a fun experience to do it with them.
And back to Mr. Lodia.
No, I'm sorry, I misunderstood because my computer volume is a bit low. I'm sorry to that. I thought that you were asking to me and Alessio about to add something else. I'm
That's
sorry for
okay.
taking the
No.
other team space, really.
No, that's okay. We do A, B, and B style for the feedbacks. So, of course, if you would like to give a shout out to anyone as well for the addition from the IULM team, the floor is all yours.
I just take really few time to say thanks to the coaches, Lanzoni and Coleoni, of course. Also thanks to my teammates because we support to each other, and it was I appreciate that. There was a really kind of a brotherhood, really a team spirit. Also, thanks to our opponents, they did a really nice debate. It was an occasion to develop our skills, of course, thanks to the Corax Foundation.
Thank you. And Mr. Michelin, if you would like to add on.
No, I just want to say thank you to my coaches, to my teammates, and I wanted to say thank you to my opponents. Yes, of course, you guys, but also the other opponents that we had. You are incredibles. I learned a lot of things, new stories. So that's the most important part for me. That's it.
Thank you. And to PSU team, Ms. Hashem and Mr. Mohammed, if you would like to add on for the shout outs.
I'd again just like to thank our coaches, Rina and Lien. We really could not have done this without them. And also my teammates who answer at the most ridiculous times and support me no matter what with all my questions.
Yeah, same thing here. I just want to thank my teammates for putting a lot of hard work in, and also to my friends for understanding our debates at these times and not being able to go out with them. So yeah, it's just thank you also to the judges and everyone here.
Thank you very much. And indeed, it's different time zones for everyone, so we won't keep you much longer. And the final question for today's session is, over the days, you have encountered different debate statements, different areas of law, but also throughout your coursework and in your own development and growth. Is there perhaps an area of law or legal system or perhaps international organization in particular that you are intrigued in learning more about or would like to perhaps explore throughout your professional career further? So first to PSU team.
I can answer this question. I am a law student and I specifically put a certain class that I can take this term so I can discover more about it, which is public international law. And I really enjoy debating in this competition, especially because it brings various fields of international law, like for example, economics, environments, just like today, global governance. So it's very fun seeing, and I think so far the most exciting one was global governance. So that is something that I am interested in.
Also for colleagues, if you would like to add on.
I'm also interested in what Maya is interested in because she tells us about it, and I think it's really interesting and we love to hear about it. And we love to experience these different fields of topics.
And if I may add, as a marketing student, a lot of stuff that we study or we learn has a lot of laws in it. And so it's very interesting to learn about all the agreements, the principles, and all of these situations that happen in law that could also affect uh, my studyings and my work in marketing in general. So it's very interesting and very helpful.
Thank you. And to IULM University of Milan, same question.
So for me, definitely one of the most interesting topics that we encountered was the one about space law. So it was really interesting to me. So generally speaking, I think I will be informing myself more about that one because again, it was really, really interesting. But generally speaking, I think I will try also to study more about international law on different topics because even though I'm not a law student, I think it's very interesting to know how the world around us actually works, even in the legal sense.
Right.
Okay,
And for
I
your
can go.
colleagues?
Yeah, I can go. I have an economics background. I want to start like that. So I have an economic background, and right now I'm focusing on the financing communication, in particular in the environmental financing communication, so the green finance. So I think the first topic, commercial law, I think it's a very interesting topic, but also today the environmental law. I will study this topic for sure. Then the other one, yeah, the space law. It's very interesting because, I mean, it's a new topic for me. Of course, it's not the most important for my CV, but I think for my curiosity, yes.
And as a communication marketing student, I think that the skills that I learned here were are really useful in institutional communication. For example, uh, when the citizen needs to know new laws, has to be informed about also international laws that can be complicated for the average citizen. This is a really important part of the institution, communicate with the citizens, and also from another aspect, the professional communication of lawyers, how they act, the public speaking capabilities to use in court, for example. Really interesting skills, really interesting topic. I don't know if in the future I would work in that field, but it was really interesting also studying those laws. Thank you.
Thank you. So really, from the organizing team, well done. And we would really encourage you to keep in contact, of course, but in a few days, you should be able already to get a bit more information about the upcoming mid-edition networking event just before we announce the progression to 8 finals. So you will be able to re-meet the teams that you have met so far in the group phase, but of course the other teams from other groups as well. And not giving too much of a spoiler, so passing the floor to Professor Levanch to wrap us up.
Yes, it was a very interesting debate and a very good way indeed to show everything you have accumulated in terms of experience in this group phase. And I want to congratulate you as well. And I want to tell as well that, yes, there is a very good actually discussion each time after the match during the networking in your group. So Nairobi, Maryland, Milan, and Princeton University are great to always attend your debates. So well done, and of course we keep in touch, and we see you soon at that networking event. So well done again. Have a great evening, because I know it's a bit late as well in Saudi Arabia. And thank you again. We keep in touch. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Thank you.